President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s refusal to use water cannons to retaliate or as a countermeasure of the actions of the Chinese Coast Guard in the disputed West Philippine Sea is a proof that the Philippines does not wish to further escalate tensions that could lead to armed conflict and drag the United States into war with China. National Task Force for the West Philippine Sea, Philippine Coast Guard Commodore J. Terriella said, "The mission of the Philippine Navy and the Philippine Coast Guard vessels in the West Philippine Sea is merely to maintain the country's presence in the region and assert the country's sovereignty, and not to cause damage to other vessels that would potentially escalate tensions." The threat of war with China is merely a pro-China narrative of threatening the Filipino people, based on lies and misinformation they are spreading, to confuse and mislead the watchers in the South China Sea. According to Philippine Coast Guard, the true intention of the Chinese government is to make the Philippines submissive and become silent, in the face of the illegal presence, provocative actions, and bullying tactics of the China Coast Guard and Chinese maritime militia against the Filipino fishermen, the Philippine Coast Guard and even the armed forces of the Philippines. The Philippines is now improvising ways to avoid direct confrontation with Chinese Coast Guard during resupply mission in Second Thomas Shoal. The president is considering aerial resupply missions to its remote outpost in the disputed shoal as an adjustment to the conduct of the routine trips in the face of persistent water cannon attacks by Chinese vessels. Ray Powell, a retired U.S. Air Force officer, posted on X that ShinMaywa US-2, a large Japanese-made short takeoff and landing amphibious aircraft, would be a game-changer for the Philippines, and suddenly China's blockade of the Second Thomas Shoal wouldn't seem so daunting. The ShinMaywa US-2 is a Japanese amphibious aircraft that employs boundary layer control technology for enhanced short takeoff and land, and stall suppression performance. This aircraft is ideal for takeoffs and landings in a small area of land or water. Compatible for resupply mission to troops stationed at BRP Sierra Madre, the grounded warship that serves as the Manila's outpost in the West Philippine Sea. Manufactured by seaplane specialist ShinMaywa, it was developed from the earlier seaplane, which was introduced during the 1970s. The ShinMaywa US-2 was developed on behalf of the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force as a replacement for its aging US-1A fleet. In Japanese service, it is operated in the air-sea rescue role. The US-2 can also be used in other capacities, such as an aerial firefighter, carrying 15 tons of water for its mission. The Philippines' adjustment on its resupply efforts in the West Philippine Sea and explore the possibility of deploying aerial supply missions to troops at Ayungin Shoal is an alternative way than a naval resupply, and the Philippine Coast Guard are no longer placed in a difficult position when they made the resupply missions. The Philippines, symbolized by the BRP Sierra Madre as a beacon of enduring sovereignty, vows to resist any interference. The nation pledges unwavering protection for its troops and guarantees the success of resupply missions despite challenges. This commitment is a testament to the nation's resilience and determination, reinforced by the 2016 arbitral ruling. The Chinese embassy in Manila has repeatedly claimed that the Philippines agreed to a new model to manage the situation in Second Thomas Shoal, which government officials, including the president, have denied. China also claimed that former President Rodrigo Duterte had accepted a gentleman's agreement not to deliver construction and repair materials to the dilapidated Sierra Madre. Philippine Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro Jr. and National Security Advisor Eduardo Año issued separate statements, stating that there was no discussion or briefing on any gentleman's agreement or new model, and claims of new model is absolutely absurd, ludicrous, and preposterous. The latest threat by China to release an audio recording of a top Filipino Navy official agreeing to a new model to address a maritime territorial row between both sides is simply propaganda by Beijing to win global opinion.
Ginugulo lang lagi ng embassy yung public discourse, and they're also wanting to influence public opinion to justify yung aggressive action nila na ginawa sa Bajo de Masinloc. So nililito lang nila tayo, sinisway lang nila tayo, dinidivide nilang Filipino people para i-justify na yung ginawa nila na pagkasunduan naman to, tayo ang nag-violate. Dapat itong Chinese embassy, we should not pay attention to all these statements. We should be very careful in publishing those headliners na inilalabas ng Chinese embassy.
今年初，中方通过外交渠道同非西部军区反复商谈，达成仁爱礁运补新模式。非军方多次确认 该新模式得到包括非防长、国安顾问等在内的整个指挥链条的同意。新模式在2月2日菲方运补中实施一次后，又被菲方抛弃。菲方的有关言论否认不了中菲曾达成均质协定、内部谅解和新模式的客观事实。我想强调的是，上述谅解和共识旨在管控分歧、避免冲突、建立互信、维护仁爱礁海域的和平稳定。中方敦促菲方遵守国际交往的基本准则，尊重事实，信守承诺，停止侵权挑衅，切实回到通过对话协商从中方妥处分歧的正确轨道。
Commodore Roy Vincent Trinidad, Navy spokesman for the West Philippine Sea, said that Beijing's claims about the new model were all fabricated to divert attention from their violations of international law and to cause divisiveness among us Filipinos. Trinidad called the Chinese propaganda as zombie stories, long dead but revived from the grave, and the best approach is to put those stories where they rightfully belong, which is in the grave, and never to be heard again. China's recent behavior against the Philippines in the West Philippine Sea represent a blatant disregard for international law and the sovereignty of Philippines. In a despicable display of aggression, Chinese Coast Guard vessels have resorted to deploying water cannons and conducting dangerous maneuvers to obstruct Philippine vessels conducting a routine humanitarian mission to aid local fishermen. The details are clear. The Philippine Coast Guard and Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources were simply trying to provide food and fuel to their fellow citizens. Yet China, with its typical arrogance, has the audacity to claim that the Philippines was illegally entering their waters that rightfully belong to the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone, as affirmed by international tribunals. China's actions are not only a violation of international law, but a shameful attempt to bully and intimidate Philippines. By using such coercive techniques, China reveals its true colors, a regional hegemon eager to violate others' rights in order to expand its own dominance. The damage inflicted on the Philippine vessels, meant to assist their own people, is a testament to China's callous disregard for human welfare and regional stability. China's actions demonstrate a cruel disregard for human life and a blatant violation of international norms. The release of a statement claiming to have expelled 2 Philippine vessels is just one example of China's aggressive and belligerent approach towards the Philippines and other neighboring countries in the West Philippine Sea. Eyewitness accounts from reporters present during these incidents have documented China's reckless behavior towards Philippine vessels, putting innocent lives at risk. This creates a clear and present danger to those on board the Philippine ships. By using intimidation tactics and dangerous provocations, China seeks to undermine the Philippines' legitimate rights and sovereignty in the region, escalating tensions and jeopardizing regional stability. The West Philippine Sea belongs to the Philippines, and it has been and will always be an integral part of Philippines territory. It is the Filipinos' duty to protect and defend their sovereignty in this crucial maritime region. It represents the inherent rights and sovereignty of the Filipino people. It is a symbol of their national identity and a testament to their unwavering commitment to protect their heritage and resources. The history of Filipinos' ancestors who traversed these waters, the sacrifices made to uphold Philippine sovereignty, and the ongoing struggles to maintain their presence in the face of external pressures all underscore the importance of their unwavering commitment to the West Philippine Sea. The Philippines will stand united in asserting their rights and upholding their national interest in the West Philippine Sea, ensuring that it remains an enduring symbol of their nation's strength and resolve. In the face of escalating maritime tension with Beijing in the South China Sea, the Philippine Navy has secured the lion's share of the recently approved $35 billion armed forces of the Philippines modernization budget, signaling a notable recalibration in defense allocations. The budget is slated to finance a range of acquisitions outlined in an extensive wish list submitted by the AFP to the President. Commodore Roy Vincent Trinidad, the Philippine Navy spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, revealed on May 1 that the budget would be disbursed over 10 years. The spokesperson refrained from detailing the specific items on the wish list, but it is presumed to include the procurement of submarines, radar equipment, unmanned combat aerial vehicles, naval frigates, maritime patrol aircraft, amphibious and auxiliary vessels, and search and rescue helicopters. Accordingly, the strategic distribution of funds, stating the larger chunk goes to the Navy, followed to the Air Force, and the Philippine Army, and then the General Headquarters. Because the thrust now is already involved from internal conflict into external threats. In January, Philippine President approved the $35 billion for a revised version of Horizon 3, almost equivalent to the total cost projected for by the original program. In contrast, the previous administration only approved $5.6 billion for Horizon 2. Dubbed Horizon 3, this revised phase seeks to not only obtain new equipment but also remove inefficiencies, streamlining the procurement process and developing a better defense strategy. Alongside Horizon 3, the new comprehensive archipelagic defense concept put forward by Philippine defense officials brings an increased emphasis on naval and air forces for the defense of the country. In this strategy, the traditionally internally focused AFP is envisioned operating offshore in its exclusive economic zone and beyond. The Philippine Navy's missions include patrols from the EEZ to the internal waterways of the 7,641 island country. Moreover, with an external threat from China, the force is looking to acquire high-end anti-air and submarine warfare capabilities. China has conducted a massive land reclamation project to essentially build and militarize a number of islands in the waters, despite protests from other claimants, as well as the United States and Japan. The US and its allies fear that the Chinese-held outposts, some of which boast military-grade airfields and advanced weaponry, could be used to restrict free movement in the area. The Asian powerhouse has hardened its position on the waterway in the years following a landmark July 2016 ruling by the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague that invalidated most of its claims there, pursuing a more aggressive stance in the waters that employs naval, coast guard and so-called maritime militia ships. Tensions between Manila and Beijing have soared in recent months in the South China Sea, in particular near the Second Thomas Shoal. The shoal is home to a Philippine military outpost, and the waters nearby have seen clashes between the two sides, including several collisions and the use of powerful water cannons by the China Coast Guard, that have threatened to escalate into a larger crisis, including one that could draw in the US, Manila's defense treaty ally. The Philippines has accused China of repeatedly obstructing resupply missions for the BRP Sierra Madre, a Philippine Navy transport ship that was intentionally grounded off the disputed Second Thomas Shoal, known as Rene Jiao in China. Beijing says the Philippine vessels entered its territory illegally. Beijing and Manila have increasingly clashed over their competing claims to the South China Sea. Beijing claims a majority of the strategic waterway, which it delineates with a 9-dash line. Beijing has been unmoved by the close to 100 diplomatic protests filed by Manila and continues to build up its flotilla of military and fishing vessels in the West Philippine Sea. Military experts agree that jointly patrolling the tension-roiled waters could be an effective deterrent against Chinese intimidation and harassment. Stability in the region is seen as being increasingly threatened by confrontations between Chinese Coast Guard and maritime militia units and Philippine vessels around disputed features in the South China Sea. From territorial defense to countering transnational crimes, the Philippines' maritime training activity with allies will help to face an array of common threats in the region,